Welcome to another episode of Ask a Paranormal Investigator. I'm so glad to be back, especially around this time of year. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be discussing an event that happened to me when I was younger. Yes, a true Halloween ghost story. Now, some of you may have heard me tell the story in the past of my very first investigation. Now, this investigation was really amateur, but what I did is I chose a house that when I was younger, I always considered it to be haunted. I went and checked it out, and the place was abandoned still. So it was perfect for me to take this opportunity to test out my skills. Now, it was me and another investigator. We went to this house. And of course, on your very first investigation, you have to go at midnight. Everybody knows that. So showed up at the house, had some, little recording equipment to maybe catch some ghost sounds, and got some flashlights and stuff. And now I was really hoping that when we got up to the front door that it would be locked and we would have to just go, oh, well, can't do it, because I was actually kind of freaked out. This place had terrified me as a kid. Went up to the front door and turned the knob. It was unlocked. So I pushed the door open. Now, I turned around real quick to make sure that the other investigator was right behind me. And as I turned back around, the door slammed right in my face. This scared me just enough that I turned around and ran over the top of the other investigator and halfway down the driveway before I stopped myself and said, okay, you are never going to be a paranormal investigator if this is how you conduct yourself. So I sucked it up and I walked back. I opened up the door and I waited a moment and it closed in my face again. So I opened it up and it closed. I took a closer look and I saw that the hinges were off kilter just enough to cause the door to always close when it was opened. Okay, well, first big lesson right there. And that is don't let things scare you and make you run off. If something scares you, dig into it deeper. It's the only way you're going to do this. So there is a story behind that house, though. There is a reason that I chose that house to be the one that I chose to investigate first. So sit back and get ready for story time. When I was a teenager, I lived in a small town by the name of Delta, Colorado. On the street I lived on, which was Sloan Street, the house at the end of the block was very peculiar. You see, it wasn't an old house. It wasn't like old peeling paint or anything like that. It was a fairly new house. It looked a bit like a manufactured house, maybe. But the bottom line is nothing should have been spooky about this house. Now, the thing is people would move into this house and 2 months later, they would be gone in a hurry, abruptly. In fact, I never saw anybody actually moving out of the house. It's kind of strange. But after about the third family that moved out of the house, I went up and checked out the house and the door was unlocked. And I went in and looked around and the place was just sort of creepy for some reason. It gave you this feeling. So me and a friend, we decided that we would challenge each other to see who could last the entire night in this house. So we set up a time where we could get away with spending the night at each other's house, so to speak. So we could tell our parents, where we were without them knowing. We got everything we needed, plenty of snacks, bags of chips, sleeping bags, and we set off to spend the night in this house and see who could make it all the way through. Now, oddly enough, this was a Tuesday night that we did this, and that was okay because we had things going on at school the next day that we could claim that we were spending the night with the other person so we could study and get ready for this test or whatever it was. It was a long time ago. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, it was a Tuesday night, so it was kind of a strange night to be doing this, but we were determined that we were going to make it. So we went to this house and we looked throughout the entire house. Nothing was really out of the ordinary, but there was one room upstairs that we decided to stay in because it was just kind of the creepiest. Luckily, there was a lock on the door, so we sequestered ourselves into this room and set up our sleeping bags and got ready to spend the night in this house. Of course, this would have to be a dark and stormy night. It was raining and the wind was howling and there was thunder and lightning. It was perfect. It was the perfect night to be doing this. We were very suitably freaked out. So we were up for a little while, of course, talking to each other and laughing about things. And there was a lot of nerves to be worked off here. We were definitely freaked out. But it didn't take too long before we drifted off to sleep. Now, next to the room that we had decided to sleep in, just outside the door and to the left was a bathroom. And we were glad that it was there. I mean, there was no water on in the house, but if we desperately had to go, we had a place we could go. And we had found some old books in one of the rooms. Nothing of notes. I think there were some encyclopedias and stuff. But we went into our room and locked the door, got all huddled up in our sleeping bags and started to chat, really. I mean, we were joking about things and, talking about things at school. We had a lot of nerves to work off, very freaky in there. But we finally drifted off to sleep. Suddenly, we were just jarred awake by the sound of the toilet seat slamming up and down. It was a terrifying noise. We ran out of the room and looked, and it stopped. And we looked at each other like, this is insane. So we went to the other room where we saw those books, and we took them in and we piled them up on top of the toilet seat. It's not going to do that again. Went back in, locked the door. Tried to go back to sleep. Surprisingly, it didn't take very long before we managed to get back to sleep. And as I drifted off, I started having this sort of waking dream. I was lying in the room, and my friend was over there in his sleeping bag asleep. And I sort of sat up and I looked at him, and I looked back and I noticed that the door was open wide and I could see down the hallway. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen the old comedy horror movie called House. I was in the 80s. In that movie, there were these two sort of spectral children, these two ghostly children. They kind of look like, oh, how would you say it? Deformed Muppets is the best way to say it. They were very, ugly in their ridiculousness. Well, these two children were in the hallway, and they were sort of they were doing a terrible job of hiding from me. Is what they were doing. It was weird how they were kind of peering around corners and stuff and looking, and then they would sort of creep back behind. It was really kind of a terrifying thing. One of them, the boy, it was a boy and a girl, and the boy was playing with something on the floor. And then when he saw me look at him, he looked up and he took whatever it was and then just kind of backed out of my view. It's really creepy. And then I drifted off into sleep again. A little later, I drifted off into another dream. And this dream was kind of bizarre because I had a friend at school who he was a year older than me, and I really looked up to him. He was a good Catholic kid, but still cool, even though very, very big into theater and things like that. His name was Daryl, and just a cool guy. But we had a little bit of a rivalry. And a little bit, like I said, I had a lot of respect for him at the same time. So in this dream, again, I'm sleeping in the house. None of my dreams took place outside of the house, which was very bizarre. So in this dream, I hear something downstairs and I wake up. I go downstairs and they're standing in the doorway, and it's raining and wind blowing and thundering outside, is Daryl. And he walks in and he's furious with me. He's like, what do you think you're doing? What did you think this through at all? You're just going to break into some house that you have no association with, you do not own, you do not have permission, and you're just going to break in and trespass? What are you thinking? What's wrong with you? And I didn't know what to say. It was a very weird, sort of thing. I was speechless. I just trying to come up with explanations for someone that I really didn't have to come up with explanations for anyway. But as he's yelling at me, down from the ceiling comes this spider, and it lands right on his forehead. And I see that once it lands, and it was huge, that it's a black widow, and it starts biting him. It just digs its fangs right into his forehead. And he is screaming and grasping at his forehead as this black, thing is right there on his forehead, and then falls to the ground. And then I wake up, and it's just like, what the hell is going on? This night is killing me. And again, I'm listening to the wind and the rain and everything outside, and it's just the height of creepiness. I drift back to sleep, And as I'm sleeping away, finally, again, I see my father figure out where we are and come into the house, and he's furious that we're in there, and he comes stomping up the stairs, and starts. He grabs a hold of the doorknob of the room and tries to turn it, and it's locked. And he just starts really wrenching and shaking the door and jiggling the handle violently. And I wake up, and it's happening. The door is shaking, and the doorknob is just rattling as if someone's trying to get in. And it's awakened my friend as well, and he's freaking out. And we just don't know what to do. And suddenly it stops. And we go and we open up the door, and it's daylight outside. It's morning. We open up the door, and there's nobody there. I look out into the hallway, and there's a little blue Matchbox car that wasn't there, or at least didn't see it the night before. And it immediately made me think of that little weird, creepy boy, ghost boy, playing with something on the floor. So we go downstairs, and all the cupboards and drawers in the kitchen are open. And they weren't the night before. But that house terrified me. Now, we woke up early enough that we had to run and get ready for school. So we go to school, and I'm just exhausted. And I see Daryl down the hall talking to a bunch of people. He says back to me. And I go running down the hall, and I'm like, Daryl, I had a dream about you. And he turns around and goes, oh, really? And he's got this black cross on his forehead. Freaked me out. It was Ash Wednesday. The timing. They say there's no coincidences, but that was pretty amazing. It was a terrifying start to to go to that house for my first investigation. And so if you're wondering why I was freaked out so much when that door slammed back in my face, when I actually went to investigate it years later, that's a little bit of the background. But for fun, let's take a look at that street nowadays and see what's changed. Okay, so this is actually the house right here that I lived in. And this was my bedroom right here. This is my parents' bedroom. And often I had to try to climb out of that window. That was not very easy. But anyway, I digress. So let's look around here. Now, this house right here wasn't there, and the fence wasn't there. There was nothing. It was just a field all the way down the street. So like I said, this house here was new. That wasn't there then. So let's go ahead and head down to the end of the block. Interesting. The house is gone. And in its place is the West Rockies Mennonite Church. A very interesting end to this bizarre story, that it would be a church. Not sure exactly what to make of that, but pretty creepy ending, I think. Please click that like button and subscribe, and tell your friends. I'm going to be back with many more Ask a Paranormal Investigator videos. And of course, you tune in right here for Monster Talk Live and Debased on a True Story. So thank you very much, and everybody, have a happy Halloween.